Hey everybody, welcome back. Again, my name is Sean Healy and I have type 2 diabetes. That's what we were talking about yesterday. It's day 2 of my 72-hour fast, so I wanted to give you guys an update on where I'm at. It's been interesting. I think a lot of people are worried about fasting and not eating for a number of reasons, which, I'll talk about in a minute, but realistically for me it's been going great. I feel great. I'm not really that hungry, and part of that may be because of the process that I kind of go through, which I wanted to talk a little bit about. There's a few things that are allowed, if you will, on the fasts that I'm doing. One is coffee or tea, which is a good thing, and honestly what I do with mine is there's what's called bulletproof coffee. You may have heard of that before, where you add in a teaspoon of coconut oil or butter, and a teaspoon of cream. So it's basically kind of a, fattening up your coffee to some extent to help the hunger. The other thing is bone broth. So, basically what I do is before I fast, I cook a chicken in the oven. We eat it for dinner one night, and then we take the bones and mix them with a bunch of water and carrots and celery and peppercorns and a little bit of apple cider vinegar and cook it for a couple days. Just leave it on the stove on low for a couple days, and then that's what I eat for my meals, or drink. So technically, and again, this is based on Jason Fung's book and kind of some suggestions that he puts in there. But from a psychology perspective, I wanted to talk about that, and that's kind of big with this because the first time I fasted for 24 hours, basically, like I had said yesterday, I ate dinner, wouldn't eat again until dinner the next day. So technically, 24-hour fast, right? And you feel hungry. I'm not going to lie, you do. But what I realized after doing this probably, half a dozen to a dozen times so far, between the 24-hour and the longer fasts, it's really all mental. I'm sure there are physiological things that are happening, but we've conditioned ourselves. At least I find this for me. I've conditioned myself so much to have 3 meals a day and snacks in between, and when that time passes and I haven't had that, it's more my brain going, I think it's time to eat. So not as much my body telling me it's time to eat. And so it's really, for me, very interesting in terms of a process, particularly being in the fitness industry. I've been in the fitness industry for 25 years. This has been my career, really. And we told people all the time to, 3 meals a day, snacks in between. If you can eat every 2 to 3 hours, then that's good. That's going to get your metabolism going. I will apologize to all the people that I told that to because I don't think it's true now. I think the problem is, and I'll show you some graphics here, of when you're eating that kind of standard 2 to 3 hour diet, what's basically happening is every time you eat, you're pushing your insulin levels up, right? And as the insulin levels go up, it's storing fat. It's taking sugar out of the blood and putting it where it needs to go. One is filling back the muscles up, filling up the liver, getting it where it needs to be, but then it converts it and stores fat. So, with that kind of every couple hour thing, we're never really getting into this state where your insulin levels go down far enough and stay down long enough to where you're using fat for energy. So essentially, I've spent the last probably 25 years at least, probably more than that really, eating that, at least 3 meals a day, if not, 2 or, a couple snacks in between, lunch and dinner, or breakfast and dinner, and then again maybe a snack in the evening, which is kind of what we've been taught. So I never really let my body get used to that fat metabolism side. And I always turn to exercise, whether it been cardio or lifting or something like that, to kind of balance that out, which realistically, unfortunately, it doesn't. It helps keep you healthy, but I would kind of encourage people to separate out the exercise aspect and what we're doing with exercise in terms of the benefits and weight loss. If we're looking at weight loss, they're kind of, in my mind at this point, almost two separate things. They can influence each other, but you can exercise till you're blue in the face and you're probably not going to lose a bunch of weight if you don't figure out your diet and really your hormones, so and insulin's a hormone. So the other option that I've done with this, or what I've kind of played with a little bit, is doing that 24-hour fast, dinner to dinner, And then the next day doing a dinner to lunch. So I basically don't have breakfast. So I'm getting that 18-hour-ish time frame of fasting. And again, as you fast, the longer you fast, the more you're going into that fat metabolism state, and getting away from, using sugars and carbohydrates for energy, sugars essentially. So, and then there's that 3-meal-a-day piece. 3 meal a day, you're going to drop into fat metabolism or getting out of that insulin phase, getting under that line, so to speak. But it can get you where you want to be. So technically, that's a 12-hour fast, right? My curiosity with this again is, how do I really effectively change my cells? And this is again what kind of started me down this path. It was really looking at. I got blood tests, and because I do every year now for sure, if not every 6 months. My A1C and everything was going in the direction that it should be going, and it was positive. However, I had some inflammation, so I started looking into kind of anti-inflammatory diets and looking at health generally. So if my A1Cs are good, but I still have sort of systematic inflammation, then it's still a problem. So that's sort of what got me onto that. I started looking into anti-inflammatory diets. Andrew Weil has some really fantastic books out there. He owns True Food, is one of the owners of True Food Kitchens, which there's one in Phoenix in Arizona. Awesome food, but he has a cookbook that I've gotten, and it's fantastic. I would highly recommend it in terms of that anti-inflammatory side of the diet. So again, that's what kind of turned me on to this next step in fasting and kind of looking at how do we decrease inflammation and how do we start to effectively, again, change the cells and what's happening at a cellular level through nutrition and through, in this case, fasting. I mean, like I said, it's pretty fantastic. I think that, the three options that we're looking at are, this intermittent fasting, at least what I've done so far, intermittent fasting, and then more long term. So like I said, I've done 24-hour fasts, I've done 48-hour fasts, and this is my first 72-hour fast. So again, update. I feel good. I went and lifted this morning at about 5:30, and then Haley and I went out for a hike for about 5 miles, and energy was totally fine. I don't feel bad at all. I don't really feel hungry at this point. I just had some bone broth, so that kind of helps, but haven't felt hungry. In terms of weight, my weight, I just weighed myself. I'm at 179.8 now. Like I said, I was 182.8 yesterday. My blood sugars, I just tested that. They're at 106. 102. So they're going in the right direction. So, like I said, from my perspective, this is an interesting test. What I'll really be interested in is where I end up at the end of the day tomorrow when I'm kind of finishing up that 72 hours. This is where I've been, so far, and this is kind of a similar pattern that's happened. I will say I tested for ketones. I have sort of I think I'm teetering on that ketosis state at this point where it's small, but it's there, I think. So that's kind of cool. And then I'm curious to see how much easier each time I get into this. This is the first time I've really kind of gotten into ketosis. So that's sort of exciting. But like I said, I'll keep updating you on kind of where we're at with this. And I think I would highly recommend looking into this fasting thing because I think there's some potential with it. And just general foods. I mean, I think that if we can get rid of, from a diabetic perspective, getting rid of any kind of processed stuff and getting rid of flours and sugars and, basically anything that's processed, because it turns into sugar in your blood really, really fast. It's sort of instant versus, whole food kind of diet, whole foods that take a bit longer to break down in terms of carbohydrates. Higher fat, both saturated and monounsaturated, like olive oils. It's the saturated piece is interesting because there's the worry about LDL increase with saturated fat, but essentially there's two kinds of LDL. Sugars make these kind of hard, dense LDLs that are problematic, where saturated fats, they're a little bit, kind of, I guess, light and fluffy LDL, if you want to put it that way. So just having an LDL number without looking at kind of what kind, they're different in terms of what they do inside the body. So, yeah, you guys, this is cool. I would recommend this fasting process, even if it's intermittent. I would start easy. I started easy, like I said, 24 hours, and I tried a 48-hour. The first time I did a 48-hour was interesting. It was a little challenging. I was hungry. That's gotten a lot better, to be honest. And I think a lot of it was as I moved through the psychology of what it feels like to be hungry and what it feels like to think you're supposed to eat. They get confused. So once you sort of separate that out and you go, okay, I feel a little bit hungry, but it's sort of a wave, and it is. It passes, and then you're not hungry anymore. Versus it's time for me to eat. I'm supposed to eat right now because I've conditioned myself over the last 25 or 30 years to eat 5 or 6 times a day. It's just how it's been. And that's probably what's caused part of my diabetes. It took that long to come on, and I think that form of eating when you're younger, you can get away with it. As your body starts to slowly create this insulin resistance and fight against that, you have this hyperinsulinemia all the time because you're never letting it really go down. Over 30 years, well, this is where I'm at. So I'm kind of trying to go the other direction and influence my body in a different way. So again, thanks for checking in if you are. If you listen this long. Sorry, a little bit long-winded, but I will come back tomorrow and let you know where things are toward the end of the 72 hours. And then I'd love to keep talking with you guys about this stuff because I've gotten great comments last night on Facebook and about specific situations with you guys, which is I love talking to you guys about this stuff. I think it's important to get information out with this. But there's a ton of stuff that we can look at for just optimal health, and in my practice and my my coaching practice, that's where my focus is going. Looking at how do you kind of find this place for optimum health, both from a nutrition side, from a unconscious mind and meditation and movement perspective to how do we wade ourselves through the world and move ahead with things. There's a lot that we hold ourselves back with that I think that we can all get beyond. So it's just one piece. So hopefully you're learning something, sharing from it. But love to talk to you guys more about it. If you have comments, leave them below, and look forward to connecting again tomorrow. You guys have a great day. Thanks.